Hello, I'm Rooks is Fun, and welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'll be your host as we go through a guided meditation practice using drawing as our primary kind of medium for exploring our attention, our awareness, and establishing some techniques of mindfulness that can serve us, whether we're creating something, doing a drawing, or making a piece of art, or just sitting in a meeting or at our desk, or needing a few moments to relax and ease into a more stable and balanced position within our day. In order to do that, today we're going to introduce a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of unease to the situation, and I'll ask you to try drawing in a way that you're not used to. Picking up the pen or pencil in a new way is what we're really interested in, because I will introduce just enough newness, just enough asymmetry to our normal to bring that into our attention and awareness, and then we can use our breath to stabilize there with what may be a slight amount of discomfort. This doesn't have to be anything overly complex, right? If you're used to holding a pencil like this in more of a writing kind of sketching scenario, you might just turn it around and hold it like this, more like a brush, or hold it more like a child and have that kind of playful, cumbersome interface there with the medium that, again, will bring back perhaps some memories, but also bring with it new challenges. Another great way, if you're right-handed, to switch over to the left. You can just still hold it then the same way you're used to writing on the right hand or left hand, or totally go for something out there and then hold it way out at the end of the stick, or kind of hold it horizontal, or let it extend down more like a mechanical instrument. Something that just puts your hand in a new position. It encourages you to have to bring your attention to that position and really engage mindfully with this act of drawing. But whichever way you hold it, the technique will work no matter what you do. And so grab a pen or pencil, a pad of paper, a sketchbook, or anything you like to draw with, and let's draw together. Playing around with holding your pen or pencil in a way that's less normal for you. So not necessarily uncomfortable, but like, different than how you might draw normally. If I kind of draw a lot like I write a bit, just a slightly extended. So you might hold it more underslung like this, like a paintbrush, which just to put the wrist in a different orientation, which makes it, again, slightly uncomfortable, but brings some attention there. Or maybe we draw like a kid, just hold it funny like that. Anything that puts it out of its context for a little while, and then we'll use the breath to help connect us to that. You could go left-handed or offhand. That can also be kind of fun there. Also, for the warm-up, we'll just play a little bit in that space, try a few different ones, and just do a little back and forth. If you're holding it more kind of paintbrushy or underslung like this, it changes kind of the control. So just get a feel of what forward and backward are like. Moving with the grain of the pencil or pen in its direction will probably be a lot more challenging because it's a little lower angle where you've got to get up real high, and then it's a bit wobbly, like the wires on like a seismograph or something. If you're just going offhand, you might find any position there slightly out of whack or uncomfortable. Try holding more with the fingers and seeing if you can kind of complete shapes or move around. Draw horizontal-ish or vertical-ish lines. Just moving around a few lines per orientation to find one that you might be interested in drawing in. I don't know, for some reason this morning I was thinking of this very potentially funny kind of child way of holding something when you lack the fine motor skills in the fingers. Might be kind of interesting and really puts a lot of emphasis on my arm extension and elbow extension. So I think I might go with that and see where it leads. And if at any time during the exercise, you see some fatigue setting in because it's kind of an awkward or just a position that you're not used to, you can always switch around or go back to something that's more comfortable so it's not overly influencing your attention, just brings a little bit of awareness to it. And if you've found that way of holding that engages kind of a new layer of the tactile position here with the medium. It still lets you move around the page. We can go ahead and transition over and see what that does for our drawing. So to help with that bit of discomfort or kind of new sensation, we would just do a breath following, breath counting drawing exercise. I'm going to move away from my hand, kind of in this case left to right, because I'm probably going to smudge a lot, but that's not a big deal. It's just that it's an awkward position, so we'll see what happens. And in any direction that feels comfortable to you, horizontal, vertical, or just whatever flows across the page. I'm going to begin by putting the pencil down and on the in-breath, letting it move in a direction, whatever feels right. When you reach the peak of that breath, pausing, turning direction, perhaps holding for a little while, and then on the out-breath, turning again. And the same, a small pause at the bottom of the breath. Keep the pencil moving before changing direction for the in-breath. And pause and change direction for the out-breath. It might start to look like a little bit of a graph if you move regularly. Or it kind of wobbles around and you don't have to breathe on my cue, whatever in and out rhythm works for you in terms of finding that brief pause at the bottom or top of the breath, beginning to turn, and then starting the next cycle, making sure to give some attention and awareness to each of those parts of the action of the breath, how they begin to interact with this different way of holding the pen or pencil. Which ways feel more controlled, which feel very out of the control, but in that focused or sharper attention to the breathing's connection, finding some space to open up to that new sensation, to find within it your interface or connection in this new position, to maybe start looking for small adjustments, whether that's extending the pen or pencil out further in those breaks between the in-breath and the out-breath, or tightening or loosening the grip. We want a firmness to the grip on the pen or pencil, something that will keep it linked to our body's motion, but not so tight that it picks up every little jitter and vibration in our fine muscles that are working to balance our arm, our wrist, our fingers, and this pencil on the paper. Something a little bit in between. Something that we can feel with our attention to that space on the page and make slight adjustments to the pressure and the grip, especially in this off-kilter or out-of-practice way. Not for building necessarily a technique, though it could work. You never know what you might find playing around and yeah, find something unique in that way of holding. And as you, again, find any practice with it, it becomes recognizable for your mind, for your nerves and fingers, and then for the visual output. I've run off towards the end of the page. You can begin again, circle back, bounce. I think I'll switch position and just start in a new place and follow the same ins and outs and see what I feel in that motion. A new position, perhaps suggesting a new orientation to the drawing, maybe even a new movement as we breathe in, pause with that full breath, and then let it float out through the next line. A softer or more abrupt transition, depending on what's taking place here on the page. And if you start in a kind of arbitrary place and a breath takes you off the edge, maybe just go off the edge, follow the motion, and come back, depending on if you can draw on that surface. Follow what is right for your context. I find the lines for my in-breaths a bit shorter than those for my out-breaths. And here I've had two different rhythms start coming together for me. And that's where we can start to layer in a little bit of more of that kind of creative attention and awareness, the guidance of the visual. Maybe slowing way down to work within the space provided, or allowing the lines to cross or overlap. And what is that change of context that builds up on the page bring into your focus or attention? Is it a potential space of craft, or just another shift in that normal? The normal with a technique being a very important place, how we're kind of used to working with a tool is very important for how we let it drift out of our primary attention while we're trying to express something, but can also be very valuable to check in with from time to time. Remind where we all started at some point, picking up that first pen or pencil, trying to coordinate its motions in our hands, probably seeing examples of what writing or drawing should look like, and recognizing the often extreme disconnect between those two. That may persist for quite a long time, or we reframe the disconnect into what looks right for us. And something we can add to this as more of the meditation aspect is kind of breath counting condition. Again, this guidance, I'll run through it a couple of times in my tempo of counting as average as I can. And then for yourself, finding the alignment with your tempo of breath and with the counting to not stress either end of it, holding too long with the in or the out, or feeling rushed through the finishing of a line or a motion. I'm going to find a place and switch up a little bit the position to be fresh, and then start with a 4 count, something kind of pretty accessible to keep in our attention, not get too carried away or lost, and just begin on my in-breath. And as I transition to the out, count to 1, and let that 1 extend through the breath. Let the in lead to the 2. And in again to a 4, 3. Easy to get lost. When I use breath counting for meditation, and I recognize the getting lost, or I just begin again, fresh. 1 breath. Tracking the cycles with a 2 breath. As the drawing gets more complex, the 3 breath may extend or contract, may overlap or truncate. The 4 breath, tracking a new space, a new time, and then beginning again with the 1. 2. 3. 4. And continuing at your own pace. For a little bit, we'll take some time of kind of silence to find that rhythm internally with your own count. And I encourage to use that as a way to let your eyes and hand explore whatever has emerged on the space of the page, as I'm doing here with the breath counting, moving through the in-between spaces of previous engagements, finding in those different lengths and letting the rhythm of the count guide the speed and the interaction of my hand, adapting when the space shrinks or expands. I will take a few silent minutes here in the middle now to just really engage with that rhythm of the breath here in the slight discomfort of a new drawing position. For me, I have experience with the breath counting as a more just silent meditation practice or internal one. So I find a lot of relaxation and inward kind of attention and focus through it. But if it's new to you and keeping track of which breath you're on is a challenge and there's a lot of resetting, or for me, I often just keep going past the number that I've set for the cycle. That's just take some practice. And it can be something nice to do for just a couple of minutes on a page where you let your hand be busy and track that breath. For me, what I was noticing and spending some time as the drawing develops and fills and thickens, reflecting on what was happening in that time of quiet, of providing a rhythm or structure, connected both internally and externally with our breathing, with our movement, our hand and arm, torso, and with that connection to the pen or pencil and what it starts to mark out onto the page, how much each local condition can influence something like our breath, something in the breath that is intended to be very adaptable, to respond to the needs of oxygenation, to blood flow, to stress, or to relaxation. A tool and a technique that can help us have some influence over that. Strenuous exercise, often reaching a threshold where our control is highly challenged and the body struggles to take over, or moments of intense stress or anxiousness, which again, the body is attempting to compensate and take over with oxygenation. And with some practice, can we have some guidance and influence in those moments to balance the crisis response of the body that is necessary and can be very helpful, but can often go on too long or provide challenges to operation for us. We can bring it back with a little counting as a centering or focusing device. Perhaps drawing is again that centering or focusing that slows things down. You may not always be able to pick up a pen or pencil, so it's good to practice kind of layers of techniques there. And on the other side, the autonomic part of our breathing, where it just takes place whether we think about it or not, and how our attention can be drawn deeply in other places. For instance, in the space of this drawing, the act or moment of creating a line, of adjusting to the context, of forming shape or sequence, of seeing opportunity, whatever else emerges there, can pull our attention inward away from the breath, and the body keeps it going. But I find in those moments of hyper-focus, of detachment and disconnection from my environment and my body, I'll suddenly look up and feel the clench in my teeth or jaw, perhaps the shallowness of my breath as all of our efforts are outwardly attuned for a short period. And that counting, rhythmic kind of exercise helps build up some interface and resilience to those moments that we can let them take over for a little while, to guide perhaps a creative moment or period, and then shift back to a more stable or balanced condition with our breath, as we have different temporal rhythms kind of practiced in our mind. We don't drift too far away and find some, for me, often pain and cramping in my jaws for some reason when I get very focused, especially on the computer. I think it's just the mouth sits in one position and doesn't move. And that's part of the mindful practice, the connection between the physical things in our space, in our body, and the physical things in our environment, keeping them in a dialogue. And the breath has established a technique, has established some kind of visual field or condition on the page. We can keep working with the breath or let that now fall back from our primary focus as it is well established. Currently, the programmed rhythm of the body, breathing in and out with our motion, and just draw for a little while, exploring the same technique, weaving its way in, out, and around, layering its way over the top and underneath. Or see what else might be there and look for moments of shading or play or opportunity. I'm just going to grab another pencil sitting here and see if adding some color in roughly the same vein of technique might prove an interesting continuation of the now visual stimulation there on the page. And in the space of quiet, we can also use that breath counting to prepare for the transition back from mindfulness and practice to being or presence in our space around us. With each count of the breath, letting the senses pick up on something. On the in-breath, what do we smell? On the out-breath, what might we hear? On the in-breath, sensing the temperature. On the out-breath, noticing the tastes hovering in our mouth. Subtle, without influence from food or drink. The atmosphere, perhaps the pollen, or the tea or coffee left over. On the in-breath, attention to the offhand that's not drawing. What's it doing? On the out-breath, moving or wiggling those fingertips, expanding and contracting to bring back movement and motor to both sides of the body. If we've been sitting very still with one side. On the in-breath, attending to the connection between our feet and the ground. Are you up on your toes or flat on your heels? On the out-breath, providing a little pressure there wherever you're at. Just to intensify its sensation. And on the in again, letting that almost float off if possible. Bringing that attention to all of these different inputs that fall from our foreground while being attentive in one place, and that we need to bring back into the full dialogue of the body as we transition from the state of practice to the state of being and interacting. Thank you for joining along. Just like with the exercise we were exploring, that slight tweak to our normal, the way we do things every day, helps to bring up a rebalancing, a questioning from within as we engage in a more mindful connection to the way we make our marks. This is not that it's a way you have to draw or that you can really find new creativity, but a way that hopefully reinvigorates what you can do with the techniques that are already well practiced, well ingrained, and bring comfort to the creative environment. Part of the creative practice here for me is not only the drawing and the time spent kind of thinking through what might lead to an exercise that can detach us for a moment from what we're thinking or projecting and let us into what really is happening there in our mind through these drawing exercises. But it's also in how do we record them, film them, share them, and spend some time together working through the exercises. So part of my creative fun is, playing with the setup and the equipment, adjusting the lighting, trying out new lenses, and just seeing how that changes the interaction through the medium of video. Having some fun this week, repositioning in a slightly different way, change up the background, and see if the little wider lens engages more of the body, engages more of that interface that I share with the paper as perhaps a little bit of a demonstration or just a connection there if you're looking for ways to engage yourself in your environment. In whatever space you're working with and whatever brings you kind of that ease and balance through the act of drawing and breathing, I hope that these exercises offer something new for you to engage with and serve you outside of the time of the recordings as a way to quickly practice some of this mindfulness in everyday activities. And I do this live every week at 9 a.m. You can find it in Zoom via Mindful Pratt's website and their daily drop-ins, or I'll stream it through Twitch every once in a while, and I put them up here, sometime a little bit later that week when I have time to get into editing it, usually around Wednesday morning. So you can catch them anytime. Yeah. But if you do like what you see, please give it a thumbs up and leave some comments down below about what you found in doing this practice. What does it bring into your mind as you use drawing as that kind of creative as well as mindful play space? Whatever space you're working with, whatever medium suits you, whatever way you can find that little tweak to your everyday to bring relaxation, balance, and hopefully some creativity and thoughtful expression. I thank you for joining, and as always, draw well.